it just me, or do horror movies inspired by true events creep you out even more? Well, today we are going to be looking at some classic horror movies that were inspired by true events. Starting off this countdown, we have Winchester. The 2018 horror thriller film Winchester surrounds Sarah Winchester, who is played by Helen Mirren, a widow haunted by multiple ghosts in her massive mansion. This whole movie is based on the real-life story of Sarah Winchester, who believed she was cursed by the people killed by her family's rifles, the Winchester rifles. These ghosts would talk to her, and they told her that if she ever stopped building her home, then she would die. Others believed that Sarah wasn't actually haunted, but she was just overcome by grief, guilt, and mental illness issues. Either way, her house was always under construction. By 1906, it was 7 stories high with about 90 rooms. Sarah knew she seemed crazy, but she didn't want to stop building her house for fear that the ghosts would kill her. In fact, the way that her house was designed was to also trick these ghosts. Like, she had stairways that led to nowhere, or doorways that would open to a 2-story drop. In the end, she had 160 rooms, 47 stairways, 17 chimneys, 13 bathrooms, 2,000 doors, 47 fireplaces, and 6 kitchens. The list goes on and on. You get it. Her house was massive. Nowadays, the home is open for tours and apparently is still haunted by the victims of the Winchester rifles. In our 4th spot, we have the Smiley Face Killer. The Smiley Face Killer is a real-life, unidentified serial killer whose trademark is to leave a smiley face in graffiti at the scene of every crime. Police started to investigate this after the 1997 death of Patrick McNeil. Patrick was a university student who was later found floating in the East River in New York City. His death was originally declared as an undetermined drowning, but 2 detectives didn't think that this was the case. Upon doing more investigating, they found that Patrick was actually stalked, abducted, and bound for a period of time before being murdered. This case and another similar case to this one triggered their investigation and led them to create this smiley face killer theory. They have found that around 335 cases of suspicious drownings could be linked to this killer. In fact, they believe that it's not just one killer, but a gang of killers. Their trademark is to leave the graffitied smiley face close to the scene of every crime. The killers also seem to target athletic, successful students who are well liked by their peers. All victims also seem to be around the same age, are typically white males, and are drinking the night of their disappearance. Later, they are found drowned with the smiley face nearby. There's just too many eerie similarities for the deaths not to be related. Well, the 2012 film Smiley Face Killers was inspired by these serial killings. The film opens with the murder of 2 victims. The victims are completely unrelated. The only thing that links the 2 together is the smiley face graffitied near the bodies. The film then goes on to follow a character named Jake, a university student that feels like he's being stalked by someone. He believes he's the next victim of the Smiley Face Killers. Coming in at number 3, we have The Silence of the Lambs, a classic horror movie, if I do say so myself. If you haven't seen this movie, then, get on it. But basically, it follows Clarice, an FBI trainee who is trying to locate the serial killer Buffalo Bill. She then has to use Hannibal Lecter, a cannibal and serial killer, to get some insight on this case. Well, according to the writer Thomas Harris and John Douglas, the FBI special agent who consulted on this film, real-life serial killers Ted Bundy and Ed Gein were both inspirations for this story. Ted Bundy inspired the movie in a number of ways. For starters, the relationship between Clarice and Hannibal was inspired by Ted Bundy's relationship with his criminology professor and profile, Bob Keppel. Bundy helped him investigate the Green River serial killings in Washington, while Bundy was a serial killer himself. Not only that, but in the film there's a scene where Buffalo Bill fakes having an injured arm to convince a young woman to help him load a couch into his van. And then when she does, he kidnaps her. Well, this was inspired by Ted Bundy, who would fake having a broken arm while carrying some books. He then would drop the books and then convince women to help him carry the books to his car or his house. Then we have Ed Gein. Well, Ed was a serial killer who would skin his victims and make clothes from the corpses. is. Just like how Buffalo Bill would create this skin suit from his victims and then he would, you know, wear it.
Coming in at number 2, we have The Omen, the child who haunted all of our childhood for so long, Damien. Released in 1976 and directed by Richard Donner, The Omen stars the likes of Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, David Warner, Harvey Spencer Stevens, and Billy Whitelaw, with it following Damien, a young child replaced at birth by an American ambassador, Robert, unbeknownst to his wife, after their biological kid passes away not long after birth. Now, he of course begins to have immediate regrets about this, when it turns out the child may in fact be the Antichrist, as death seems to follow him everywhere. Terrifying dogs begin to turn up out of the blue, and at a birthday party the nanny hangs herself, stating, "It's all for you, Damien." Creepy. Damien even tips his mother over the banister up the stairs, causing her to miscarry. Creepier still, they soon discover Damien's birth mother was in fact a jackal after they head to the cemetery to dig her up. As the movie unfolds, the father begins to realize that Damien is the Antichrist whose presence is supported by a conspiracy of Satanists. So the father and priest act how any sane person would. They try to get rid of the Antichrist from this world by performing a sacrifice. However, just as they're about to do it, the police arrive and seeing a child, they gun the father down. Jumping forward, we're at the funeral of Robert and Damien walks away with the President of the United States, no less. Evil definitely triumphs in this one and is quite literally reaches the top. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have The Witch. This is a truly superb movie that we just don't get to discuss enough on this channel. That needs to change. Released in 2015 and directed by Robert Eggers, The Witch is a period supernatural horror starring the likes of Anya Taylor-Joy, Ralph Ineson, and Kate Dickie, with it centering on a Puritan family who were banished out to live by the edge of the woods and soon encounter forces of evil beyond their New England farm. The movie is most certainly a slow burn, with you not being quite sure what is going on or who to trust. There is a witch living deep in the woods, that much we know, but when the baby in the family disappears, it has you questioning what exactly took place. We do learn that the witch has taken him, leaving the family utterly shattered. However, he isn't the only child to be in the clutches of the witch in the woods, with Caleb also straying too far and being poisoned by her magic. The movie is not joyful in the slightest, and it's quite difficult to have a good time while watching it, simply because of how bleak it actually is. It's incessant, the lingering unease and the unsettling feeling that nothing will ever be alright for the family. They've seen too much and experienced too much, and when witches and the devil are involved, you know no one is making it out alive, unless you join them, of course. And that's exactly what happens with Thomason. She signs an oath to the devil and joins the coven of witches living in the woods, with the movie ending with them levitating above a bonfire and laughing maniacally. Evil wins in this one, but honestly, we're kind of happy about it.
Number 5, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Who doesn't love taking a trip down to the 100-acre woods with Winnie the Pooh and all his funny friends? These beloved childhood characters are ready to shine on the silver screen. In a sequel to Pooh's Heffalump adventure, please welcome Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, an ultra-violent splatterhouse slasher set in the 100-acre woods, reimagining the beloved children's characters as bloodthirsty maniacs who spend a whole lot less time playing around and eating honey and getting stuck in trees and more time chasing people with axes and rusty pickaxes and stuff. Oh bother. Trailers and photos of Blood and Honey went viral pretty much immediately because I think everyone saw it and kind of did the same thing where we were like, that's real? What? Yeah, it is. Copyright law and public domain is a wild, wild thing. Winnie the Pooh is public domain, so you watching at home, if you want to make your own Winnie the Pooh movie, this is my invitation. You go right ahead. So here we are, where we have an ultra-violent Winnie the Pooh movie. Something absolutely no one was asking for, but I'm glad we have anyway, because at the very least, I can't claim to have ever seen a movie like this, really. And you know what? Credit where it's due, it does actually look pretty unnerving. Pooh looks the most terrifying he ever has, a far cry from all of our nice memories of him. Piglet as well has gone from like a cute little cutie to like a hillbilly horror. Eeyore, my favorite, he's not around because if the plot summary on IMDb is anything to go by, Winnie the Pooh ate him. He's probably happier now, I guess. That's kind of what he always wanted. I think this will be a fun watch, kind of a movie to get a big pepperoni pizza and some snacks and a few friends around. I don't think it'll win an Oscar, but the novelty will do it for me. If it turns out to be a big success, director Rice Frake Waterfield has spoken out about how he wants to make an entire series of public domain slasher movies, eventually building up to a shared universe because everyone wants some of that sweet, sweet MCU money. Me personally, I would love to see the new Winnie the Pooh going toe-to-toe with Peter Rabbit in a horror movie Alien vs. Predator situation. I know they've had tension for years. Time will tell if this dream will come to light, but pre-production has already started on a Peter Pan movie in a similar vein to Blood and Honey, so expect a blood-soaked trip to Neverland sometime in the near future. But if you can't wait and you want more horror content right now, you don't need to grab a ticket to the movies. movies. You can just stay subscribed to Top 5 Scary for more premium horror content literally every single day. We got scary stuff for every occasion, so click through and I'm certain you'll find something to like. But finish up this one first, okay? We got lots more movies to go. Number 4, Skinnamarink. I love a low-down horror. Even better, like a low-down, low-budget found footage horror. Some of my favorite flicks are stuff like Blair Witch Project or VHS. It's a great way for lower budget productions to stand out, where you can't just rely on tons and tons of gore effects or CGI monsters to serve up scares and have to, use creative filmmaking. So let me introduce Skinnamarink, a Canadian experimental horror film made on an absolute shoestring budget that has critics singing praises and double checking their hallways just to make sure no evil got inside. Skinnamarink is about as bare bones as a movie can get. It was made on a budget that was less than the price of most used cars and was shot entirely on digital in the childhood home of the director, which I guess would technically make this a home movie. Skinnamarink is one of those ones where really the less you know about it, the better, so I don't want to give too much away, so I'll give you the little IMDb teaser and hopefully that's enough to excite you. The son and daughter of a family wake up in the middle of the night, discover that their father is missing, and discover that something is happening to the house as all windows, doors, and entrances and exits to the outside world appear to just be vanishing. The director, Kyle Edward Ball, is making his cinema debut with Skinnamarink, and prior to this he made short films on a YouTube channel inspired by commenters' nightmares that they had when they were young. Skinnamarink is no different, with some reviewers pointing out that it was the kind of movie that made them feel like they were young again, wanting to pull a blanket over their eyes, afraid of boogeymen in the dark or monsters under the bed. So if you're looking for tons of action, movie monsters, blood splatters, Skinnamarink is not really that at all. But if you want a slower, very down-to-earth, grounded, low-budget horror movie, Skinnamarink will have you glued to the scene, glued to the screen. I literally can't read today. I'd say if you're a fan of stuff like the Blair Witch Project, you owe it to yourself to give Skinnamarink a shot. Plus, let's shout out as many independent Canadian filmmakers as we can. Number 2, Sinister. Moving. It's always stressful, isn't it? It's a huge pain. Well, Sinister is a 2012 horror film about an everyday family moving houses and all the trials and tribulations that come with that, like having to update your postal code on your information, unpacking your stuff and figuring out where all your art books are gonna go, and finding out that you moved into a house where a series of grisly rituals happened, sacrificing the previous family who lived here, and it's all been filmed and kept in a box upstairs in the attic. Just regular stuff the kids go through all the time. A struggling true crime novelist is trying to chase his glory days and intentionally moves into a house he knows where ghastly deaths took place in order to get close to the story so he can better research it and write a bestseller. He discovers a box in the attic full of film of all of the crimes and becomes obsessed with uncovering and exposing what happened, mostly so he can make a quick buck and get himself back on top again and make the late night circuit. As his obsession grows, it starts to affect his family and children in concerning ways, as everyone in the family starts acting stranger, having visions, hallucinations, and psychotic episodes, leaving you wondering if there is something much deeper going on in this house beyond a floundering author chasing a bestseller. Now, if you haven't seen this one, it's definitely worth going into this one as blind as you possibly can, because the twists and turns totally make this one. I spent the entire runtime of this propped up on the edge of the couch, my heart pounding, hoping that everything would turn out to be totally okay, even though I knew better. It's a horror movie, things never go great. The movie's got a stellar sense of dread that refuses to let go once it starts and only lets you breathe out once the credits roll, and even then, not for very long. Fantastic performances across the board, but a special shout out goes to Ethan Hawke, who makes this thing. Number 1, Hereditary. Now, there are a ton of movies that could easily have taken the number 1 spot here, and I thought pretty hard about making The Shining number 1, since it's kind of a classic, but I figured a lot of people have talked about The Shining, and then I remembered the experience of seeing Hereditary in a movie theater, and how it was the only time in my life I've ever seriously thought about leaving a movie theater because I thought I was gonna throw up on the seats. I was so scared and uncomfortable. Hereditary is a 2018 horror movie from visionary Ari Aster, who also gave us the psychological horror movie masterpiece Midsommar, so Aster really just bangs out the hits. Hereditary is about as peak A24 horror movie as it gets. One of those ones where the monster is really a metaphor for generational trauma and all that. After the grand matriarch of a Midwestern family passes away, her daughter and grandkids begin to uncover the cryptic and terrifying truth behind their ancestry, trying desperately to escape the sinister legacy they've inadvertently inherited. This movie is terrifying in the worst of ways. It's not just jump scares or tons of blood. No. This is elevated horror. This is not your usual horror story. It really zeroes in on the way too close to home horror of watching a family break apart. It is gut-wrenchingly painful to watch, preying on really specific kind of fears. It's gonna get its hooks in you and have your teeth grinding for the full 2 hours runtime and for ages afterwards. If you've seen this, I dare you to look at a pigeon, a stop sign, cheese wire, or a treehouse ever the same after this movie. And staggering performances. Toni Collette goes for absolute gold and delivers one of the best performances I've ever seen in a horror movie, full stop. She needs an Oscar for most upsetting crying I have ever heard in a film, which is a category she would have no competition in. Hereditary might not be the goriest film or even the scariest movie I've ever seen or most upsetting. There's a bunch of Takashi Miike or Park Chan-wook films that would probably take that. But Hereditary is definitely one of the most viscerally scary movies I've ever seen. The kind that just sits in your gut and makes you think about it all day, like you were living through an actual nightmare. Watch only if you're truly brave. I know I made it sound absolutely horrible, but it is a great movie. Just don't be surprised if you don't sleep that night.
Coming in at number 5, we have Saw. Now, I know the Saw franchise is extremely large and convoluted at this point, therefore I'm going to specifically be discussing the first Saw movie, so don't yell at me. Released in 2004 and directed by James Wan, Saw is a horror film starring the likes of Cary Elwes, Lee Whannell, Danny Glover, Monica Porter, and Tobin Bell, with it following Whannell and Elwes, who play two men who awake to find themselves chained up inside of a dilapidated bathroom, with one, Lawrence Gordon, being ordered to kill the other, Adam, otherwise his family will be killed. Now, this is of course the movie that kickstarted the entire franchise in a much tamer way than you might expect, considering the original Saw was much more of a psychological horror than a gore fest. The simple premise was, how far would you go to protect yourself and the ones you love? Will you take another life? Will you saw off your own foot? Now, during the entire ordeal, lying on the floor between Lawrence and Adam is a corpse, with a bullet wound to the head. He is a piece of the set for the duration of the movie. That is until the end. As we know, Lawrence cuts off his foot and he crawls to freedom. Adam, however, had freedom in his clutches the entire time, but sadly he blew it. And during this reveal, the corpse in the middle of the room stands up, revealing himself to be the orchestrator of the entire game. He utters the words, "Game over," before closing the door on Adam forever, sealing his fate. Of course, there are many more movies to follow in the franchise, but John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, isn't caught in this one. He lurks in the shadows, testing the will of individuals who have done wrong in their lives. Before we jump into number 4, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, it really helps us out a lot. Coming in at number 4, we have The Descent. The Descent is an incredibly bleak movie that has you hoping and praying for a heroic ending, but sadly we never get it. Released in 2005 and directed by Neil Marshall, The Descent is a horror movie that follows 6 women who go caving following the death of one of the women, Sarah's husband and child, in a car crash. However, what was supposed to be a cathartic experience turns into hell on earth for the group, with them being forced to survive against the humanoid creatures living inside of the cave after they get trapped. Friend quickly turns on friend, dark secrets are revealed, and one by one the group are savagely picked off until there is one left, Sarah. She manages to scramble her way to freedom, runs to the nearest car, gets in and starts driving to safety. We expect anyway. However, that is not the case. Turns out Sarah was hallucinating the entire thing after hitting her head inside the cave system. She never escaped the cave, but is instead trapped as the cave dwellers begin to close in on her. The movie then fades to black with the sounds of her screams. How bleak is that? Now, I know there is a sequel to this movie, but I'm just going to focus on the original. There is no happy ending, just death. Coming in at number 3, we have Drag Me to Hell. Now, I've milked Drag Me to Hell for all it's worth, but it's the prime example of evil triumphing over good. Released in 2009 and directed by Sam Raimi, Drag Me to Hell stars the likes of Alison Lohman, Justin Long, Lorna Raver, and David Paymer, with it following Christine, a loan officer who denies an elderly woman an extension on her mortgage, which was quite literally the worst call for her to make, with the elderly woman being a gypsy, who ultimately places a curse on Christine. After 3 days of enduring escalating torment, she will be plunged into the depths of hell for eternity, unless she can break the curse. Now, Sam Raimi knows how to make a good horror with comedic elements, with him not missing the mark with this one. Drag Me to Hell is incredibly effective, terrifying with a subtle amount of humor without losing any quality. I mean, the entire parking lot scene is grade A horror comedy, with a gypsy woman attacking Christine but losing her dentures in the process, yet that doesn't seem to stop her. She suckles on that chin. However, after escalating torment, Christine believes she has found a way to pass the curse back to the woman who gave it to her. However, That doesn't work out for Christine, because she accidentally mixes up two very important envelopes, and she quickly runs out of time, with the earth quite literally opening up and dragging her to hell.
In our second spot, we have The Conjuring. Now, I'm sure you guys all know that the Conjuring series is based on the real-life cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren. With The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It being released soon, I thought we should talk about the real-life case that inspired this particular movie. This film is about the real-life trial of Arne Cheyenne Johnson, the very first trial in which demonic possession was used as a defense. On November 24th, 1981, 19-year-old Arne Johnson fatally stabbed his landlord, Alan Bono. So it all started when Johnson's brother-in-law, David, started acting differently. He said a man with big black eyes and a thin face with animal features was controlling him. He got more and more violent, and he started to kick, bite, spit, and swear, and he also had multiple seizures. Sometimes he would even talk in strange voices. That's when Ed and Lorraine Warren were brought in and declared that he was possessed. So then Johnson went on to taunt the demon, telling it to stop bothering David and to take him instead. Johnson also apparently went to the spot where David got possessed, which was an old well, and he claimed to see a demon hiding in the well. The demon then possessed Johnson and was apparently responsible for stabbing the landlord, or so he claims. Who's excited to watch the movie though? Hit that like button if you are, I know I am. And in our number one spot, we have The Watcher. The 2016 film The Watcher is about a young couple that move into a new home, only to find out that the home comes with a very creepy guest. They end up being tormented by someone who refers to themselves as The Watcher. Things end up getting so bad that they have to flee, leaving their dream home behind. Well, this is inspired by true events. In 2014, a family bought a $1.3 million home in New Jersey. But before they even got to move into this house, they started getting creepy letters from The Watcher. When they moved in, the letters only got worse. These letters talked about what the family was doing, proving to them that someone was truly watching them and stalking their every move. Here are some creepy things the letters have said. And I quote, "This home has been the subject of my family for decades. I am the Watcher and have been in control of the house for the better part of 2 decades now. I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. All the windows and doors in the house allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house." And then another letter referred to the new owner's children and asked, "Will the young bloods play in the basement? And have they found out what's in the walls yet?" All these letters made the family terrified. They ended up hiring investigators and set up cameras, but the Watcher was never caught. As a result, they decided to move out of their home and sell it for a loss. But they did end up filing a lawsuit against the previous owners of the house for failing to disclose the Watcher that kept threatening them. Apparently, the previous owners got letters from the Watcher as well. To this day, police have never caught the Watcher, which makes this film that more terrifying.
Coming in at number 5, we've got The Haunted. Before the Amityville horror, before The Haunting in Connecticut, and definitely way back before The Conjuring, there was a horror movie focused on a Warren case without the backing of any Hollywood studios. There was a horror movie focused on a Warren case that wouldn't make it to theaters. That's right, a made-for-TV movie featuring all the haunts and scares you'd expect. Based on a book of that same title, it takes a look at one of the lesser-known Warren investigations. The Haunted aired first in 1991 and took a swing at dramatizing the Smurl haunting. Jack and Janet Smurl claimed that a demon inhabited their Pennsylvania home for more than a decade, leading to them seeking the help of the Warrens. This demon caused them all sorts of pain and suffering, from generating loud noises and bad smells to pushing people down the stairs. Apparently it even threw their dog at the wall one time. After all these horrific events, they reached out to Ed and Lorraine. The couple came to town and performed a series of tests to see what could be done about the demon. They attempted to play religious music and pray, but this just caused the demon to amp up its performance. Ed reported that mirrors would shake and often the temperature would severely drop. Dark masses were sighted, and at one point they even got a message written on a mirror, demanding that they get out. All in all, a pretty classic haunting. And while The Haunted doesn't connect with the Conjuring universe, it's still a pretty decent little horror movie. In fact, it even garnered Sally Kirkland a Golden Globe nomination for her performance as Janet Smurl. So if you're looking for a little bit of a throwback and are interested in one of the earlier depictions of the Warrens on the big, or in this case, small screen, here you go, The Haunted. Coming in at number 4, we've got The Haunting in Connecticut. This one is particularly interesting as there's some controversy surrounding its claim to have been based on a true story. So the movie is supposed to be based on the experiences of Carmen Snedeker and her family. They moved into an old house that was once a funeral home, which usually results in some spooky stuff happening, right? This decision to move into a creepy place was influenced by the fact that their son was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma and wanted to be closer to the hospital. After settling into the abode, they started finding evidence that the home was once full of dead bodies. Embalming tables, mortician's tools, and more were discovered, tipping them off to the previous purpose of the place. These details led a lot of people to not believe the tale from the get-go, but if you take the family's need for hospital proximity into account, maybe it makes a little more sense. Then started all the paranormal happenings, from objects moving when nobody was looking to the kids seeing strangers wandering around the house. A few months of this, and the Snedeker family reached out to the Warrens. With their arrival on the premises, things got a little clearer. Ed and Lorraine moved into the haunted home and discovered some new things about it. Apparently the morticians who lived there practiced necromancy, which ended up imbuing the house with a terrible curse. This explained the unexplainable events and gave a rationale for what was happening. They then performed an exorcism and claimed that the house was safe for the family to inhabit. Many folks connected to the Warrens and this story say that a lot that happened was exaggerated, which tends to be the case with a lot of paranormal investigations. A lot of it is up to interpretation, and the true story angle to this movie is especially dubious thanks to how they handled it. See, the Warrens don't make an official appearance in the movie, and a lot of the discoveries are made by other people. And in the end, the narrative chose not to do an exorcism to cleanse the home, but use a purifying fire to drive the spirits out instead. So while The Haunting in Connecticut is definitely inspired by a real-life Warren case and pulls a lot of elements from it, the facts are played pretty fast and loose. What can you expect though, right? Coming in at number 3, we've got Annabelle. If we're talking about big horror movies heavily inspired by the Warrens, it's just about impossible to ignore Annabelle. The Conjuring universe as a whole owes pretty much its entire existence to Ed and Lorraine, but their tale of Annabelle the doll is probably one of their best known. Creepy dolls work a special kind of magic, don't they? It's hard to imagine talking about cursed objects, paranormal museums, or uncanny investigations without bringing up everyone's favorite Raggedy Ann / porcelain nightmare. Tales of the two nursing students and their experience with this supposedly haunted doll have taken up a whole lot of space in modern pop culture mythology. And with the original Annabelle movie garnering enough attention to spawn 2 more movies and a whole bunch of tie-ins, they're definitely doing something right. Developing a brand new cinematic universe friendly story for the doll, we learn that in these flicks, Annabelle is a doll haunted by the estranged cultist daughter of a seemingly normal family. It takes a whole lot of twists and turns, and once a movie hits 2 sequels, you're bound to run into some pretty out there moments. But the OG Annabelle offers enough spooky moments and iconic doll scares to firmly cement it into the horror conversation. And of course, the famous glass case in which Annabelle is kept at the Warrens Occult Museum has a role here.
Number 3, Evil Dead Rise. Groovy. Evil Dead has always been one of my absolute favorite horror movies ever. I love a horror comedy. If you couldn't tell already from my passion for Scream and my excitement for Renfield, and no one has ever done it better than Evil Dead 2, which might genuinely be one of my favorite movies of all time, let alone horror movies. I've probably seen that like 30 or so times. For all the quips, chainsaw arms, time travel, boomsticks, and gallons of fake blood, it's easy to forget that originally Evil Dead started as a low-budget horror movie trying to shock you to sickness with its gore and scares, and was trying to take itself a little bit seriously. The franchise tried to reboot itself about a decade ago, simply titled Evil Dead, hoping to recapture that same feeling of terror and a bunch of teens lost in a cabin. In a departure for the movies, Ash Williams and his chainsaw was nowhere to be found, and the comedy was completely absent unless you consider someone sawing their arm off with a bread cutter hilarious. And if you do, I don't really want to watch any like comedies with you. Well, Rise is set to try one more time at capturing that original gore fest. It seems like it's disconnected from the 80s films and the 2013 reboot and is doing its own thing. Evil Dead Rise sees a pair of estranged sisters reuniting in a cramped Los Angeles apartment. And their reunion is cut short after discovering a flesh-bound book, one Necronomicon Ex Mortis, in the sisters' building, which, well, if you know anything about Evil Dead, you know reading that book is very bad news and pretty much a guarantee that you're going to invite an army of flesh-eating demons into your world. If the trailer is anything to go by, expect Evil Dead Rise to be packed to bursting with gross-out gore, high-octane scares, and not a whole lot of one-liners. Bruce Campbell has an EP credit on this, but he's leaving the boomstick behind for this one. 3 seasons of Ash vs. the Evil Dead was more than enough for him and more than enough for me, so I'm just excited to see some new Evil Dead content regardless. The trailer was super promising and already had me scared, and if they can do that on a video I'm watching on my phone, I cannot even imagine how much popcorn I'm going to be flinging around the theater when I see this in April. Number 2, Saw X. Saw 10, Saw X, Saw 10. Well, we'll decide. I don't know what they want to call it. The games never end. So long as the sun still sets, they will continue making Saw movies. Death, taxes, they're gonna keep making Saw movies. Those are certainties of the world. There's always more inventive ways to show horrific dismemberments and really stretch the definition of what a game is. The franchise has been spinning its wheels for a little bit, with most fans agreeing that there hasn't been a truly great Saw movie in years. Saw 7, The Final Chapter, Jigsaw, and Spiral were all pretty weak entries that disappointed longtime fans. Saw The Final Chapter, ain't that ironic? We were all hoping to see a little bit more of John Kramer, less convoluted plot twists and retcons, and more of what Saw's all about, chaining people to radiators who probably didn't deserve that much torment. While Spiral seemed like a step in the right direction, it did underperform dramatically and wasn't exactly the reboot worthy of saving the series. So longtime Saw collaborators Kevin Grutart and Josh Stolberg came together to pen and direct a script for Saw X. Saw 10. At this time, very little is known about the 10th entry in the splattering series, other than that Tobin Bell, best known for his role as John Kramer and that funny little puppet, will be returning with a main character role. So we can expect lots of Kramer goodness, lots of pre-recorded messages about how much blood victims are going to have to shed to learn important life lessons. Exciting too is Shawnee Smith, who plays Amanda Young, Jigsaw's troubled apprentice from the first 3 Saw movies, is set to return as well. And reports say that it's going to take place at some point during the first and second film, which makes sense since, spoiler alert from a movie from 2004, Jigsaw dies in the 3rd one, so, wasn't a lot to do there. He's capable of a lot of things, but bringing himself back from the dead he hasn't quite nailed yet. Do I think Saw 10 is going to be the best movie ever? Probably not, who's to say, but I absolutely love the Saw series, bones and all, pun intended, for all its ridiculous soap opera level twists, secret apprentices, and just utterly insane death trap, and of course, that little puppet. So I'm excited to spend any time at all in that dirty bathroom one more time. Number 1, Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah, no, I'm being serious. I'm including this on the list because you know what? I'm genuinely looking forward to it. If you're unfamiliar with the IP somehow, Five Nights at Freddy's is a series of video games about a haunted pizzeria populated by an animatronic cartoon band who's a lot more lively than their stilted animations will suggest. They come to life at night and have a real hunger for just about anything that isn't animatronic. Now the series gets unbelievably complicated, so I'll let someone else more knowledgeable than me explain that. If you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, head on over to Top 10 Gaming. They do so much Five Nights stuff, you'll have stuff to watch for years. The mega popular smash hit indie game franchise blew up pretty much overnight. Going from one developer's passion project, a short half-hour scary point-and-click game, became a media empire, spanning 9 games, not including spin-offs, a series of novels and comic books, and a movie that's been in production hell since 2015. The Five Nights movie has passed from multiple creators and teams, and for ages, it seemed like it was never gonna actually materialize and just existed as a sort of vague tease. But as of 2023 though, we have found a team, we've found a script, and we've got some concrete evidence it exists. It's being actively filmed, and it's starring Josh Hutcherson as the doomed security guard, and horror icon Matthew Lillard, famous for playing Shaggy in Scooby-Doo, and the original Ghostface, spoilers, will be playing the villainous owner of the Fazbear franchise. Early reports too said the animatronics in the film will be all practical effects, which if done right will be premium unleaded nightmare fuel. I am a sucker for a practical effect in a horror movie. All bets are on for the Five Nights movie to be a pretty big hit. Jason Blum, the head of Blumhouse, is producing, and Matt Lillard has already agreed to do a trilogy of Five Nights at Freddy's movies.
Coming in at number 5, we have the Lamia from Drag Me to Hell. Now, Drag Me to Hell is a movie that divided viewers upon its initial release, but those who didn't appreciate it clearly aren't fans of the legend that is Sam Raimi. Released in 2009 and directed by Raimi, Drag Me to Hell is a supernatural horror movie that follows Christine Brown, a bank loan officer who has a curse placed on her by an old woman who she refused to extend a mortgage. Christine is subjected to 3 days of escalating torment, after which time she'll be plunged into the depths of hell. Scary stuff. No one wants that. Now, the demon in the movie, the Lamia, is absolutely terrifying and one truly powerful demon that you do not want to mess with. Not to mention, it has a wicked sense of humor and not in a fun way. The curse placed on Christine includes the torment from the Lamia, a goat-like demon that is conjured during a seance. The Lamia torments her throughout the duration of the movie, with the one goal being to drag her to hell to suffer for eternity. Not to mention the hell Christine endures throughout the movie is horrific, whether it being the elderly woman sucking on her chin or a swarm of bugs. It's hell on earth until it isn't, which is a hint to the end of the movie. But watch it to find out. I want to go to hell. I'll see her there. Before we jump into number 4, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, it really helps us out a lot. Coming in at number 4, we have Annabelle from The Last Exorcism. The first time I watched The Last Exorcism, I remember being truly terrified, with it being one of the most effective exorcism movies I had seen in a long time. Then they sadly came out with a sequel and we all just stopped discussing it, which was probably for the best. Released in 2010 and directed by Daniel Stam, The Last Exorcism is a found footage supernatural horror starring the likes of Patrick Fabian, Ashley Bell, Iris Barr, and Louis Hertham, with it following a disillusioned evangelical minister who decides to participate in a documentary following his final exorcism, while also exposing the truth and fraud of the ministry. Now what we learn is that a lot of these exorcisms are fake, and Cotton Marcus corrupts people's minds into believing they are possessed in order to perform these fake exorcisms. However, things take a turn when he heads to a farm in Louisiana, where a young girl, Nell, has been disemboweling livestock. So Cotton pays a visit along with his camera crew and quickly has his lack of faith seriously tested. The demon in this movie is truly terrifying, possessing the body of Nell and having her do unspeakable things, contorting her body and breaking her bones. It's a horrific ordeal that ends with an even more shocking ending that I won't spoil for those who haven't seen it. Just watch it, but remember, don't check out the sequel. It's shockingly bad. Coming in at number 3, we have The Possession. This was a truly terrifying horror movie that I often forget exists. Let's change that. Released in 2012 and directed by Ol Bernadette, The Possession stars the likes of Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Kira Sedgwick, Natasha Callis, and Madison Davenport, with it being produced by Sam Raimi. Back again. The movie follows Emily, who at a yard sale comes across an antique box and convinces her father to buy it for her. However, Emily soon becomes more and more obsessed with the box and starts to exhibit signs of possession. She begins to act violent and is charged with supernatural powers. It's absolutely terrifying. Now, the movie is somewhat based on true events. In 2003, a business owner named Kevin Mannis auctioned a wine cabinet on eBay. With the listing, he included a description claiming the cabinet was previously owned by a Holocaust survivor who said it contained a malicious spirit of a dybbuk. A dybbuk is a malicious possessing spirit believed to be a dislocated soul of a deceased person. The box ultimately became something of an internet legend, with it then being turned into The Possession after the rights to the story was sold. As of right now, Zach Bagans owns and displays the box in his museum. Also, funny story, Post Malone claimed he had a period of bad luck after coming in contact with the haunted box.
Number 3. Hellraiser 2022. The original Hellraiser is one of my absolute favorite horror films ever, which I think tells you just about everything you need to know about me. I mean, I love the Cenobites and I love all the sights they have to show me. The original movie is scary, absolutely like gut-churningly disgusting, and it's a piece of special effect wizardry that still holds up to this day. It also gave us one of the best, creepiest horror movie icons with Pinhead. Originally dubbed the Priest, the tall, slender demon, or angel to some, who enjoys pleasure and heart-stopping pain in equal measures. So when they announced that they were going to reboot Hellraiser and also recast Pinhead, myself and a lot of fans were more than a little hesitant at a new take on the classic character, but then I found out it was being directed by David Bruckner, who made The Ritual and worked on VHS, and I knew the film was in good hands, and lo and behold, hey, it was pretty good. The visual effects and gore for the new film are some of the best out there. The new design for Pinhead is horrifyingly cool, trading out the old goth kid at a nightclub look for a terrifying like flayed skin design, making it look like she's wearing a costume when really she's just naked and had all her skin peeled, which is the most Hellraiser thing ever. And oh yeah, Pinhead's a girl now. Slip that in like it was nothing. For me, a Hellraiser film's most important quality above all else is it goopy and gross. Does it make me want to cover my eyes and not look at whatever's on the screen? Yeah? Then this is a great Hellraiser film, and I want to see more through cracks of my fingers, so give it a watch. I wish this one could have been in theaters. It's streaming on Hulu for those who get that, and available on digital purchase everywhere else. Go in, give it an open mind, if for nothing else than its gross out effects. I know that doesn't really sound like a pleasant selling point for a movie. If you're gonna see Hellraiser, that's exactly what you want. Number 2, Knock at the Cabin. Now, depending on how you feel, M. Night Shyamalan is either a total hack who's been coasting for years on a dwindling reputation, or is a misunderstood auteur who's one of the last unique voices in horror cinema, and it really doesn't seem like there's much wiggle room for where people fall on that guy. So let me know down below in the comments what you think about old M. Night. Genius or total goof? Knock at the Cabin is the newest Shyamalan flick starring Dave Bautista and Jonathan Groff. It's an apocalyptic psychological horror thriller, which is a great combination of words in my opinion. Bautista and Groff play parents of a young girl who are vacationing out in a cabin. But things take a dour turn when the family is apprehended by armed bandits, who insist that they've seen prophetic visions of the end of days. And the only way to prevent the apocalypse from claiming the globes will be to sacrifice a member of their own family. That's all the recipe for a good thriller for me. Now, Knock at the Cabin just came out, and I haven't even had time to see it yet. I only get so much time away from the fog. I watch 4 movies a year, to be honest, and they're the same movies I've been watching since I was a kid. So we'll see if it stands the test of time and if it'll be a classic or a flop, but I've heard lots of great things from a lot of my friends who like these kind of movies. So, you know what? We'll catch up to this one, and I'll loop back around. I'll let you know how I feel. Keep an eye out for another video like this where I'll bring up Knock at the Cabin again. And number 1, The Exorcist. Hey, wait a second. The Exorcist already came out. That was like a long time ago. It came out in like 1973. I know they made some sequels and stuff, and you can always crank some more out, but we're getting a brand new Exorcist movie in 2023? Oh, and it's serving as a sequel to the original 1973 film, and disregarding all other sequels in favor of a new timeline. That kind of sounds like what they did with Halloween, you know, in 2018 when that guy David Gordon Green made a Halloween sequel that was a sequel to the original film only, and erased all the other so-so sequels and brought back the old characters and everything, and it was pretty good. And oh, David Gordon Green is directing this Exorcist movie too. So this guy's just got one trick then. He makes sequels to classic horror movies. We don't know a whole lot about the new Exorcist movie. In fact, if you go to IMDb right now, it's officially listed as Untitled The Exorcist Film, which I don't think is the catchiest name. That's probably gonna look a little bit busy on the movie poster. So far, the only confirmed details that we know for certain is that David Gordon Green is directing, and Ellen Burstyn will be reprising her role as the mother from the original Exorcist film. Just like how Jamie Lee suited up to beat Michael Myers around the block in Halloween 2018. Now, will this new Exorcist movie be good? Personally, I'm pretty optimistic. The 2018 Halloween is fantastic, and is my opinion the second best Halloween movie ever made, after the first one, which carries a lot for me. The other 2 in the trilogy didn't do much for me, but that's neither here nor there. We've had a lot of good possession movies coming out. The Conjuring franchise is mostly about that, so I think it would be pretty cool to see a new one from a guy who we all know can deliver a good legacy horror sequel and can bring up some scares and respect an old franchise. Number 4. The Amityville Horror. Another haunted house story, and wouldn't you know it, another one attached to Ed and Lorraine Warren. If there was a haunted house in the Midwestern United States in the 1970s and they made a movie about it, well, by gum, those 2 names will come up a lot. They were very busy. The Amityville Horror has been made into a movie a few times, first in 1979 and again in 2005, if you can remember that terrible period when Hollywood was dredging up every single horror franchise and rebooting them terribly. Both movies are based on a real-life famous haunting, however, and while details vary between the films pretty wildly, let's see how they stack up against the original case. In 1973, a man named Ronald DeFeo slayed his family in a brutal crime, claiming that he had heard voices that had commanded him to do it, and there was some entity in the house. 13 months later, the Lutz family bought the house. The realtors had warned them about the house's grisly past, but it didn't bother them. You know how the housing market is. A friend of the family told them that it would be wise to have the house blessed since there could still be evil inside the walls. After the family moved in, they described all sorts of paranormal wrongdoings going on. Green viscous slime coming up the staircases, voices speaking out to them, telling them to get out, flies all over the house, and the family even seeing wild things like specters. Now that's all pretty bad, but the film adaptations really take it up to the extreme. In the films, the Lutz family faces spirits directly, seeing ghosts, the father even gets possessed and attacks the family dog. Now, nothing this extreme happened in the actual haunting case, but there was a photo that was released that appears to show a ghostly boy walking across a staircase. But there's a lot of discussion as to whether or not it's legitimate, or whether or not anything involving the haunting was legitimate at all, as there are many who feel that it was faked by the Warrens and hyped up a little bit to try and make it a much more interesting story so they could sell books or movies. Well, real or not, it definitely worked, as the book was a smash hit and there have been dozens of movies since, meaning we're not leaving Amityville anytime soon. Number 3. The Exorcism. Now, The Exorcism is an iconic horror movie and legendary story adapted from a novel. Not many people know that the novel and the film were based on a real-life exorcism of a boy named Roland Doe, or so we think, as his real name has never been cleared up. Living in Maryland, Roland lived a quiet, sheltered life, relying on his aunt for company, a noted occultist, and fascinated with the spirit world. She gifted him a Ouija board at a young age. After his aunt passed, it wasn't long before the family home started to experience a series of strange paranormal events. Like it always does, it started a bit small, just objects moving around the house or water leaking from all the pipes in the house, but then eventually it started to ramp up. It seemed like Roland had become possessed. He started to fall mysteriously ill, and red scratches appeared all over the boy's body. The family was put in contact with the clergy, who suggested they needed an exorcist to help them. Now, unfortunately, although in the film, Reagan only needed one exorcism, albeit a brutally rough one, Roland wouldn't be nearly that lucky. Roland was exorcised round the clock for weeks and weeks. Now, he never turned green and vomited up pea soup, nor did he ever twist his head all the way around, but they did report that he would growl gutturally in a voice that wasn't his. He would speak Latin, and even threatened the priests by saying that Satan had taken control of his soul. On one occasion, during an extreme exorcism, he broke free of his restraints when he was tied to a mattress and managed to slash at one of the priests using the buckle, similar to Reagan attacking her exorcisers multiple times in the film. After weeks of battling, eventually like a miracle, Roland woke and said he saw a vision of Saint Michael and Satan battling for his soul, and after that, he was freed. None of the priests were slain like in the film, and luckily after this harrowing experience, Roland was able to live a quiet, normal life and tried his best to live under the radar, not wanting any more attention than he'd already had. After reading about it in a newspaper, author William Blatty was fascinated by the case and inspired to write about an exorcism of his own, which would then become The Exorcism. And then the movie was made, and well, the rest is pretty much history. Number 1. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven was a master of horror. I don't think it is completely fair to call him a visionary and an icon of the craft, giving us not just one, but two legendary classic horror movie franchises, A Nightmare on Elm Street and the satirical horror movie series Scream. Freddy Krueger is larger than life as a horror icon. He's incredibly popular, appearing in several of his own movies, even coming into some of Jason's movies, starring in a couple video games as a playable character in Mortal Kombat and Dead by Daylight. A horribly burned dream-invading ghoul, manifesting people's worst fear and attacking them in a place no one can help them and no one can believe them. He's terrifying, but by gosh do we love him. It's no wonder Freddy's had such scary staying power. But I bet you didn't know Wes Craven was inspired by a real-life horror story for Freddy. Don't worry, there's no real-life groundskeepers that were cast into a furnace, at least I think. Wes Craven was reading the LA Times one morning, and he read an article that pierced him and stuck with him. It was about a refugee family that fled to the United States for the fear of their lives. The son of the family was plagued by nightmares and said that he was too afraid to sleep. When he finally found himself falling asleep in the middle of the night, he was screaming and passed away during a nightmare. This spoke to Wes Craven deeply, who sympathized that he was too afraid to sleep and no one would listen to his worries, and saddened at the idea of something that would attack someone while they were vulnerable and away from the protection of supervisors and guardians. From that tragic story, Freddy Krueger was born as a manifestation of this horrible concept that affected Wes Craven so deeply, trying to conjure up the most evil thing he could think of. Since then, Freddy's become a pop culture icon and is not without his legions of fans, but few know the true story behind the iconic slasher.
Coming in at number 4 we have Bagul. Bagul is the main antagonist of the 2012 horror film Sinister, and its 2015 sequel Sinister 2. He is an ancient demon who consumes the souls of human children. He possesses a realm of his own and can travel into the mortal world via images of himself. Bagul was the brother of Moloch, a demon who relished in child sacrifice. He dwelt in the netherworld, which could be accessed through images according to early Christians. One day Bagul copied Moloch's child sacrifice customs and took children in the night to consume their souls. Infuriated by the religious plagiarism, Moloch sewed Bagul's mouth shut. Ever since, Bagul became a fearsome entity that would influence children to kill their families in many grotesque ways before transporting them to their netherworld. There he would slowly consume their souls. However, he would punish any child that fails to kill their family by quickly disintegrating them, as seen in Sinister 2. Bagul is a tall, nightmarish humanoid creature with pale skin and long black hair. His most distinctive features are his lack of eyes and mouth. Due to the lack of mouth, Bagul's voice is never heard, thus preventing greater insight into his personality. However, his centuries of family murders and child abductions all point to him being a sadistic and bloodthirsty demon who would force children to kill their families in particularly gruesome fashions for fun. Bagul is only appeased and properly worshipped once he kidnaps his child accomplices into his netherworld and slowly consumes their souls. He is also shown to adapt to the times, as shown by how he influences his child accomplices to make snuff films of their murders. Through these snuff films, Bagul often momentarily appears in scenes to taunt the viewer. He, along with the decaying ghosts of his child accomplices, would then haunt the viewer and their family. This would cause the viewer and their family to move to another home, which allows Bagul to start a new family massacre. We do not know the weakness of Bagul or how to stop him, making him that much more terrifying. In at number 3 we have Succubus. A girl can become a succubus if she is not a virgin and is sacrificed in a satanic ritual or bitten. This is exactly what happened in Jennifer's body. A succubus is a demonic female sexual predator who seduces human males to feed on their flesh and souls in order to survive and nourish their strength. A succubus needs to consume human flesh to maintain and restore her health, beauty, and powers to their peak. They only need to feed once in every month and seem incapable of eating any normal food, vomiting it in form of black fluid. It is unknown what a succubus looks like in its true form, but it is known that they have ghoulish yellow eyes and a large extended snake-like mouth with rows of razor-sharp fangs that are similar to a shark. While in a normal possessive state, they all tend to be physically attractive and seductive, making their host more beautiful and desirable than they were before as a human. As long as they are nourished, they will always be healthy with flawless skin and hair and perfectly defined body. If they fail to feed, their beauty will wane a little, with a loss of pigment in the skin and hair becoming dull and falling out. They will also develop cold or flu-like symptoms. When actually feeding, the succubus seems to follow a ritual of its own, the requirements of which being sexually seductive elements followed by violence and then actual feeding. Before feeding on Colin Gray, Jennifer told him, I quote, "I need you scared, I need you hopeless," implying that the victim's mental state must also play a role in the act. They possess a variety of supernatural powers that grow stronger each time they consume a victim. A succubus does have some weaknesses, making them easier to kill. If they become malnourished, they become weak and lose some of their special abilities. Once weak, you then need to remove the heart to fully stop them from being able to heal and attack. In at number 2 we have the Creeper. The Creeper is the main antagonist of the Jeepers Creepers horror film franchise. He is an ancient demonic creature who feeds on human beings for 23 days every 23rd spring. He eats body parts of his victims and seems nearly invincible, often wearing a tattered black trench coat, also donning a hat after he killed its previous owner. He tries to remain disguised to appear almost human. It seems to be incapable of speech, but in the first film it was heard whistling the tune of Jeepers Creepers. Prior to the events of the series, the Creeper was an immortal being who lived throughout the countless centuries in human history. Among other atrocities, the Creeper accidentally destroyed a civilization, killing all of its inhabitants, but expresses no sympathy towards his mistake. In all 3 films, the Creeper is shown to be rather a twisted individual. He seems to enjoy toying with his victims before killing them. By doing this, he is not only able to amuse himself, but also works well in igniting more fear in his victims. However, once his time on Earth nears its end, the Creeper can be extremely aggressive and ruthless, so he will continue to pursue his victims even severely injured. Despite being mostly animal-like and seemingly incapable of speech, the Creeper does display human emotions and intelligence. He is also shown to understand emotions such as amusement, anger, pain, and fear, and at one brief moment it is hinted that he may understand compassion. When Trish begs him to take her instead of Derry, the Creeper does actually listen to her and seems to give her offer some thought rather than just immediately fly away. Nonetheless, the Creeper is merciless and unsympathetic for his victims and even goes so far as to turn their bodies into art pieces, which he then hangs on his wall like a hunting trophy. And finally, coming in at number 1 we have It. It is an ancient demon who can shapeshift and feed on fear. Its origins mostly unknown, but believed to be a glamour from an old tribe of glamours who feast on fear. He is the only remaining member of the tribe. Although it lived on planet Earth for many years, it originated in a void/dimension outside the regions of space known as the Macroverse. Since its true identity is unclear due to its shapeshifting abilities and being from another universe, it is referred to as It. The form of a female spider seems to be its true physical form on Earth. It now lives deep below the fictional town of Derry, Maine. However, its favourite and most common form is that of a circus performer named Pennywise the dancing clown. As most small children love a clown, and generally it seems that the people in Derry happily accepted the presence of a stray circus performer, although several times in the novel it calls itself by the name Robert Gray. This may be an allusion to real-life child cannibal Albert Fish, who reportedly used the name Robert Gray as an alias. Its primary goal is to feed on humans, generally preferring children over adults since they were easier to scare and manipulate. According to the creature, frightened flesh tastes better and uses fear to salt the meat. It arrived on Earth in a massive cataclysmic event similar to an asteroid impact, landing in a location in North America that would eventually become Derry, Maine. Once people settled over this location, it adopted its usual pattern of a 27 to 30 year hibernation, waking to kill and eat. Each awakening and return to hibernation is sometimes marked by a violent and tragic act. It appears in the years between the string of children disappearing, no one seems to look into deeply to find the reason. It is outwardly explained that a series of murders, no matter how gruesome, don't get reported if they happen in the small town. However, the real reason is that the influence of it prevents anyone from investigating too deeply. The fact that it can transform into anybody's greatest fear, then feast on its fear, makes him a terrifying demon and proves themselves again and again to be almost impossible to stop. The film indicates you have to overcome all of your fears to be able to stop him, which is easier said than done.
Number 5, Renfield. I feel like this is the rare movie where I honestly don't need to see a single trailer or even hear a single fact or tidbit of trivia to know I want to see it, other than one piece of information. Nicolas Cage plays Dracula in this movie. Okay, moving on. We're gonna go on to number 4. No, okay, I'll actually fill it out a bit. We'll talk about Renfield just a little bit. As if you need anything more than Nicolas Cage plays Dracula. Renfield is an upcoming horror comedy featuring the immortal Count Dracula, and I think he's played by, I don't know, some like B-movie actor or something, and his humble manservant Renfield, who's been indebted to Dracula for centuries and is growing more than a bit weary of it. The two of them find themselves in modern Louisiana, a far cry away from the Romanian castles the Count is used to, and trouble arises when his servant finds himself falling in love with a police officer, and comedy ensues. Interestingly, this script was inspired by a pitch from Robert Kirkman. You probably know him as the creator of The Walking Dead and Invincible, and was adapted into a screenplay. Kirkman isn't particularly known for his comedy, he's definitely known for his violence and gore, so it's a bit of a step outside his comfort zone. Alongside Nicolas Cage in the starring role is an all-star cast of actors. Nicholas Hoult from Mad Max, X-Men, The Menu is playing the eponymous Renfield. Awkwafina is the police officer he finds himself smitten with, and we got Parks and Rec alum and Sonic the Hedgehog voice actor Ben Schwartz as a mob. Nicolas Cage in comedies is some of his best. The unbearable weight of massive talent was a real surprise hit for me. Definitely go see that. Nick Cage plays himself, it's fantastic. And if you've somehow done yourself the utter disservice of never having seen Vampires Kiss, I implore you, please go get that done. Since Nick Cage plays a vampire in that, and it's absolutely hilarious. It's one of the most insane performances he's ever given. Renfield is set to drop in April, and you can absolutely believe I will be there front row day one. And if you're looking for more scary movie content, true tales of terror, fake fibs of frights, ghouls, goblins, aliens, cryptids, and everything freaky under the sun and above it, well, have I got something for you. Is this playlist on Top 5 Scary? Click through, stay scared, but most importantly, stay subscribed, because we're trying to get those numbers up. Now let's keep going. Number 4, Scream 6. It's always someone you know. Although Sidney Prescott managed to finally shake Woodsboro's most infamous resident, it seems that the ghost face can't be put down just that easily. Scream 6 is a big departure for the franchise, taking place in New York instead of a small Californian town, and may I just say, it's high time. You know, slashers have been acting like they're too good to make movie sequels about their bad guys going to space or going to New York anymore. Jason did it, and I guess we just decided it just wasn't vogue anymore, but hogwash, I love seeing Ghostface running around the Big Apple. Ghostface on the subway. He's not supposed to be there. What are you doing there, man? The torch of Final Girl has been passed from Sidney Prescott to Tara Carpenter, introduced in the previous film and played by everybody's favorite goth girl, Jenna Ortega. Some other reprising roles include Hayden Panettiere coming back to play Kirby, a fan favorite character from Scream 4 whose death kind of left a bad taste in all of our mouths. So seeing her come back is actually super cool. There was a little Easter egg that confirmed she was alive in Scream 5, so I'm very excited to see her come back. I am a huge Scream fan if that is not coming across. We're also going to see Scream 5's protagonist Sam Carpenter return, and series mainstay Courtney Cox as Gale Weathers. No word on how horrifying her haircut's going to be. It would be a strange Scream film if it didn't have at least one cast member. Losing Neve Campbell and David Arquette definitely hurts, so one legacy member is more than enough. It's being directed by a duo of Tyler Gillett and Matt Bettinelli-Olpin, who worked together to make the last Scream movie, which honestly honestly I thought was pretty good. I know some people had some issues with it, but I really liked it. They also made Ready or Not and had previously collaborated on the horror anthology series VHS. I'm personally super excited for Scream. Of all the slasher franchises out there, and I might land myself in some hot water with this hot take, but I think Scream is the most consistent. I think all of the Scream movies are pretty good. Even the worst Scream movie, Scream 3, is still like leagues better than most of the Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street sequels. I just love Ghostface. I love that little goof. Although the loss of Wes Craven is definitely felt deeply, the previous film left me as a fan feeling like the series was being taken care of. The meta commentary was top notch, the scares were blood curdling, and there was a good amount of that Scream humor. I cannot wait to find out who's under that mask come March.
Coming in at number 2, we have Henry Desjardins, The Taking of Deborah Logan. I forgot this movie even existed until now, and I'm so happy I remembered it. Released in 2014 and directed by Adam Robital, The Taking of Deborah Logan is a found footage horror starring the likes of Jill Larson, Anne Ramsey, and Michelle Ang. The movie is set in Virginia and tells the story of a documentary crew making a movie about a woman, Deborah, with Alzheimer's. However, they soon uncover something sinister about her while documenting her story. The movie soon starts to compare the symptoms of Alzheimer's with possession, with Deborah's behavior becoming increasingly more bizarre and disturbing. She wanders the house at night, levitates onto the kitchen counters, and even operates an old switchboard in the dark, speaking in French and talking about sacrifices and snakes. Creepy. It's here that they notice the line for 337 keeps ringing, with it formerly belonging to a local physician named Henry Desjardins, who disappeared after a series of ritualistic murders. We soon find out that Deborah killed Henry after he tried to use her daughter Sarah in one of his rituals. He is the one now possessing Deborah and using her as a vessel to sacrifice others and finish what he started. Absolutely terrifying. Now, I won't spoil the ending for those who haven't seen it, but the film is a lot, with one scene showing Deborah unhinging her jaw and trying to swallow a victim whole. Gross. And finally, in at number 1, we have Lipstick Face Demon from Insidious. Hailing from Insidious, this Lipstick Face Demon is arguably one of the scariest entities to appear in a horror movie, with his infamous dinner tables jump scare terrifying viewers for years to come. Released in 2010 and directed by James Wan, Insidious stars the likes of Patrick Wilson, Rose Byrne, and Barbara Hershey, with it following a couple whose son enters a comatose state and in turn becomes a vessel for violent and malevolent entities who are seeking entry into the mortal realm to wreak havoc. However, we soon learn that the son Dalton is not in a coma, but has the ability to astral travel, and has been unknowingly doing it while he sleeps, with Dalton likely believing he is dreaming. Unfortunately for Dalton, he traveled a little too far, ending up in a purgatory realm called the Further, and is trapped there by a terrifying demon, the Lipstick Face Demon, also known as the man with fire on his face. It is in the Further that we get a good look at the Lipstick Face Demon, and although he never speaks, he is able to communicate through dreams, with the grandmother recalling her encounter with him, stating, I quote, "I went into Dalton's room, there was something in there with him. It was standing there in the corner. I asked, 'Who are you?' and it said it was a visitor. I said, 'What do you want?' It said Dalton. I can still hear the voice." It is right after she utters those final words that we see the demon pop up behind Patrick Wilson in a terrifying jump scare moment. The demon has a red face and is muscular with black skin, fur legs, and cloven hoofs with a devil's tail. The demon keeps Dalton chained up in the Further while he files his nails and plays with his marionettes. Very creepy indeed. Such a specific fetish. Marionettes.
Number 5. The Lighthouse. From visionary director Robert Eggers comes The Lighthouse, a harrowing fable that teaches us the importance of respecting personal boundaries and respecting seabirds. Eggers is one of my favorite modern horror directors, whose work sits a cut above the most usual horror fare with The Witch, The Lighthouse, and The Northman, which isn't quite horror unless you're terrified of Norway. The Lighthouse is unlike any other scary movies you've seen. Actually, it's probably unlike most movies you've seen. It's kinda hard to define The Lighthouse under one genre. It's unsettling and definitely makes me feel all heebly-jeebly watching it, but it isn't horror in the traditional sense. There's no monsters or slashers, just two men, a lighthouse, a whole lot of seagulls, and enough cabin fever-induced madness to shake a lobster at. A rookie lighthouse keeper, played by Robert Pattinson, is assigned to keep a lighthouse on a small isolated island off the coast of New England, under the supervision of the island's crusty old master, Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are some of the best working actors out there right now, and the two of these titans absolutely show up for this, carrying this two-headed character piece on their backs and speaking in some of the most hilariously memorable accents ever put to film. Seriously, Willem Dafoe's old nautical piratical accent in this thing needs to be taught in acting schools. I would do an impression, but I won't do it justice. The film is shot beautifully, the whole thing seeming like a mix between a bad dream and an avant-garde theater production, leaving you asking the entire time if anything you're seeing can be trusted, if any of it's even happening, or if the whole thing is all just one twisted nightmare between two very lonely, isolated men. Now, I can't say for sure if they went nuts because they weren't subscribed to Top 5 Scary, but I'm willing to bet that a little bit of entertainment from the best scary videos channel on the web might have helped some of that madness. So subscribe, maybe. Number 4, Annihilation. I've talked a bit about Annihilation before on this channel, and I will continue to do so until Annihilation gets the respect it deserves. That's my mission. I've never forgiven the movie-going populace for not seeing this one in theaters. Annihilation came to us from director and writer Alex Garland, who also gave us Ex Machina, a fantastic movie about having a crush on a robot. Annihilation is a cosmic horror story detailing the effects of after an asteroid crashes to Earth and a mysterious alien presence known as the Shimmer begins to manifest across a quarantine zone in a forest outside an army base. Everything the Shimmer touches starts to blend together. Biological life merging, double helixes swirling in a big cosmic gumbo. The film is hauntingly beautiful as it is terrifying. Our protagonist Lena, played by Natalie Portman, is a US Army veteran who lost her husband in an unrelated combat mission. One day he shows up on her doorstep, convulsing violently, leading Lena towards the Shimmer. Learning her husband was involved, she ventures forth with a group of fellow researchers and soldiers to uncover what lies at the heart of the Shimmer, what's causing it, and if it can be stopped. The film is a visual treat with its lush vistas and uniquely terrifying monster designs. I've talked about Annihilation Bear before, and I will take any opportunity to talk about Annihilation Bear. I love Annihilation Bear. Slap a photo of him back there for me. Annihilation is the perfect kind of horror movie, simultaneously exploring complex themes of depression, grief, humanity's inherent nature and propensity towards self-destructive behavior, but it also asks even bigger questions like, wouldn't it be really yucky if a bear had a human skull inside its head that screamed like a dying human while it was roaring? Get you a horror movie that can do both, okay? Number 3, Jacob's Ladder. While the first 2 entries on our list were pretty recent and well received, I want to throw it back a couple decades for our next entry and highlight a cult classic that could always use a little bit more love. Jacob's Ladder details the story of Jacob Singer, a Vietnam veteran who 4 years later, after returning home from the war, struggles to readjust to his normal life. Not helping matters much, no doubt, is the fact that Jacob keeps seeing horrifying monstrosities surrounding him every day. It seems as if since he's come home, nothing has ever been the same. The film shows us life through Jacob's tormented eyes. As he tries to navigate through healing and overcoming his personal demons, he is constantly haunted by real-life demons that seem to have a very vested interest in him. Matters only serve to get a lot more confusing when Jacob learns that other members of his platoon, back from his army days, have all been suffering similar things, reporting seeing the same monsters and being haunted. Desperate to find the truth, Jacob seeks out the cause of what's happening to him and his old friends, and ends up descending down a path of madness, learning things no man ever should. Worth noting is just how influential Jacob's Ladder is, serving as one of the direct inspirations for the legendary Silent Hill series of games, with Silent Hill 2 in particular taking major inspiration from the film's plotline, monsters, twists, right down to the protagonists even wearing the exact same outfit as a little homage. Jacob's Ladder is a little older than some of the other entries on this list. It is absolutely worth a watch and still worth your time. A great performance out of Tim Robbins and one of the most wild twist ending horror movies ever had. A bunch have tried to copy this. I'm sure you've seen a million hack writers copy it, but no one did it as cool as when Jacob's Ladder did it, so there. And actually thinking about it, I shouldn't even mention a twist, so there was no twist. Everything in Jacob's Ladder happens very literally. Go into it knowing that, okay? Number 2, Hush. Okay. Enough movies about incomprehensible horrors from beyond the stars. Let's reel it in a bit, and let's get back to some comprehensible horror. Home invasion. Lock those doors. Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn the volume up. Hush is a 2016 slasher home invasion movie coming to us from Blumhouse horror icon Mike Flanagan, director of a ton of amazing horror projects like Oculus, Dr. Sleep, Midnight Mass, The Haunting of shows, and Hush is no exception to that rule. A deaf and mute horror writer, that's why I did that before, who lives alone with her cat in the woods with a few isolated neighbors around her, becomes the unwilling target in the most dangerous game when a twisted hunter decides to make her his prey. After hunting her neighbor with a crossbow, he sets his sight on on her next. When he learns that his next victim is deaf and mute, it seems like he finds himself thrilled at the possibility of a challenge. Now, Hush could have very easily just been your run-of-the-mill slasher home invasion movie, but it stands a lot taller than that with some incredibly fantastic sound design. I mean, I would hope so, given the premise of the movie and the name of the movie. The movie is so tense and saves its sounds really effectively for when it knows it's going to be the scariest. Makes it a lot scarier than the usual horror movies with a bombastic booming soundtrack and tons of scare hordes. It lets you really breathe in the tension. The cat and mouse game between the protagonist Maddie and the unnamed hunter feels deeply personal, putting you smack dab in the middle of it, chewing your fingernails the entire time as you hope for the best. Please check out Hush. Now, number 1, Green Room. Coming in at our number 1 spot is one of my favorite horror thrillers of all time, Green Room. An A24 horror classic before that was even a cool thing to describe your movie as. A failing Midwestern punk band are trying to hit it big while traveling the Northwest, barely scraping by on instant ramen and van life when they agree to play a gig at a rural roadhouse. Absolutely thrilled at the prospect of getting paid for once, the band takes the gig without asking any questions, only to swiftly discover upon arriving that they are in bad company. The bar is ran and owned by a skinhead gang who don't take kindly to them whatsoever. After the bassist witnesses a crime in the eponymous Green Room, the band is trapped by the gang who refuses to let them leave. Alive. From here, the movie turns into a sort of reverse home invasion as the band tries desperately to escape the clutches of the gang by any means necessary. Green Room is tense. You are going to feel like you are trapped in there with them. If you've ever survived a local DIY show basement, then the sights of Green Room will look pretty familiar to you. Setting a high-octane horror movie in such a hostile environment that you'll recognize makes it feel all the more real. You know, I've seen countless horror movies in haunted houses, but I can't name that many in a bar basement. Green Room is horror at some of its best, taking a concept I guarantee you haven't seen before and exploring it beyond just a simple bloody slasher. Fantastic camera work, dark humor, and a gripping plot with lovable characters and truly hateable villains. We are 3 paragraphs into me talking about this, and I haven't even dropped the biggest bomb, which is that the leader of the skinhead gang is played by Sir Patrick Stewart in one of his most unhinged roles ever since maybe American Dad. I'd say he steals this thing, but honestly everybody delivers. Anton Yelchin also delivers one of the best performances of his career as the band's weary, tortured bassist. Go into Green Room expecting a super tense, shockingly gory, but amazing horror movie if you can brave it. Just make sure you get a stamp on your wrist so you can leave.
Number 5. Phoenix Forgotten. Phoenix Forgotten is a 2017 American found footage sci-fi horror directed by Justin Barber in his directorial debut and written by him and T.S. Nolan. Produced by Ridley Scott, the Ridley Scott. The film tells the story of the disappearance of 3 teenagers who set out to find the source of a widely reported 1997 UFO phenomenon known famously as, you guessed it, the Phoenix Lights. We all remember this, don't we? Okay, now the plot. Sophie Bishop and her boyfriend visit Sophie's parents' place in Phoenix, Arizona on the 20th anniversary of her brother's disappearance. In 1997, the family all witnessed the Phoenix Lights during Sophie's 6th birthday, which was, drumroll please, recorded. Several strange lights appear in a formation over the city before being chased by fighter jets. The family is convinced that they have witnessed UFOs via the old recordings, and Sophie now begins to dig a little bit deeper. In the tapes, Sophie's brother Josh begins investigating the Phoenix Lights with the help of his friends Ashley and Mark. Sophie interviews multiple parties regarding the trio's disappearance and the sightings in '97, only to find the group's abandoned car and a camera and one single tape. Sophie views the tape, obviously, showing the beginning of the group's epic journey to find out what caused the Phoenix Lights. We then see what eventually ensues of the poor trio in a horror movie about aliens. Yeah, shocker, right? Or who knows, maybe it has a happy ending. I like this movie a lot for obvious reasons, but it's like really fun, and I like the dated feel with the tapes, you know? As always, dudes, if you like what we do here at Top 5 Scary, throw us a thumbs up down below or even leave us a comment, you know? Number 4, Antrum. Antrum is supposed to be the deadliest movie ever made, and that's what it claims. It's like a fever dream, this movie. Again, not real, but supposedly real. You know? It's a movie. Antrum is proudly a 2018 Canadian horror film. Woo! Go Canada. Written and directed by David Amito and Michael Lacini, the film is divided into 2 parts, an opening and a closing narrative in the form of a mockumentary and a feature film. The mockumentary loosely tells the story of Antrum, a movie released in the late 70s that supposedly had effects on those who watched it. The bulk of the movie then is just kind of moment to moment what kind of happened. Antrum was developed by Emilio and Lacini during the development of a separate project in which they were brainstorming scenarios that scared them. Their central idea would later become the basis of Antrum. This idea and concept of what it would be like to watch a supposed, quote, real cursed film. The filmmakers felt like it would make a great horror film, which it does. For the film's occult aspects, the writers studied multiple historical depictions of demons and the devil. It stars Nicole Tompkins and child actor Rowan Smith. Antrum made its world premiere at the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival in October 2018 and was nominated for several awards festival to festival. Uncorked Entertainment acquired North American distribution rights, releasing it on video on demand and pretty well all streaming services since like 2019. It received great reviews who praised its uncomfortable atmosphere, its uncomfortable acting, and creativity. Yeah, they kind of nailed it with this one. It's so 70s. Like, it feels like, again, a fevered night terror. Number 3, As Above, So Below. As Above, So Below is a 2014 American horror film written and directed by John Eric Dowdle and co-written by his brother Drew. The title refers to the popular paraphrase of the second verse of the Emerald Tablet. The film is presented to the audience as found footage, following a documentary's crew's experience exploring the catacombs of Paris. The film was produced by Legendary Pictures and distributed by Universal. The film received negative reviews from critics but grossed more than $40 million with a huge profit from only a $5 million budget. The plot. Scarlett Marlowe is a scholar continuing her past father's research for the Philosopher's Stone. Scarlett travels to Paris with two friends, and using codes from her research, they solve a riddle leading them with coordinates to the catacombs of Paris. They sneak underground and the group wanders the caves. They encounter cultists, ghosts, visions, you name it. They find a Templar, Assassin's Creed looking tomb and see and read some pretty jarring stuff. Statues in the walls come to life, and it goes all Indiana Jones but like scary. The car scene? Like, yeah, what's that about? That's horrifying and downright disturbing. Dude, this movie is gonna leave you gasping for air, literally. But I really liked this movie. It's shot GoPro style, and I love that humid, dingy cave stuff. Look one way in the dark and then the other way. Yeah, I'm just sweating thinking about that scene.
Number 3, The Brundlefly. Jeff Goldblum is probably one of Hollywood's most celebrated and beloved weird guys. Everything he does is immediately lovable, and he has got such a friendly, inviting face. Known for fan favorites like Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park, it would be just terrible if something ever happened to that warm smile. Well, rest easy, because the real Jeff Goldblum is doing very well for himself these days and nothing has happened to him. But in the 1986 David Cronenberg classic, and one of my absolute favorite creature features, we get to see lovable old Jeff slowly molt into a sickening mix of fly, man, and a disgusting wet pile of makeup. Eccentric inventor Seth Brundle has seemingly perfected teleportation technology after working out a few kinks with its inability to read physical tissue. And after a night of poor scientific judgment and desperate to impress a girl, Brundle teleports himself, and it seems like it goes off without a hitch, except for the unnoticed housefly that enters the machine with them. From here, we watch Seth descend painfully slowly into a sloppy abomination. Brundle doesn't just step out of the machine already fly, no. We get to watch the poor guy's skin model, his face fall apart, watch his limbs start to bend the wrong ways until it all culminates with Brundle being reborn as a new species, the Brundlefly, which looks less like a man or a fly and a lot more like a complete mess of carapace and wet hairy boils. Now, the original Fly definitely has its moments, and I recommend you check it out. In that one, we watch a man swap his head and his arm for a fly's in a real classic 50s drive-in B-movie kind of way. And it's a ton of fun. Vincent Price is great in it, but it won't ruin your night the way looking at sweet Goldblum turning into the Brundlefly will. But hey, they're both absolutely great, but I've got a real preference for the Cronenberg one. Number 2, Pinhead and the Cenobites. Angels to some, demons to others. That's what Pinhead describes himself and his group of Cenobites, which is referred to in the scientific community as a cenobium. You're welcome, you learned something today. Unless you're a fan of the films and you're already nodding your head in agreement, you might be asking yourself, what's a Cenobite? I have such sights to show you. The Cenobites are a group of extra-dimensional beings who exist beyond our understanding, traveling trans-dimensionally in search of further exploring the balance between pain and pleasure. They dress a bit like the goth kids in high school if they all fell through a home hardware. Special shout out goes to the right-hand man Chatterer, the eyeless, toothy-gritting best friend a pain demon could have. Mysterious and utterly disgusting, these seemingly humanoid travelers love nothing more than a good case of suffering. Their leader, Pinhead, gets the name from the hundreds upon hundreds of nails embedded into his skull, but he's not suffering at all. He really enjoys that kind of thing. He's just a friendly-looking guy looking to explore a bit. Can't shame him for that. I can probably shame him, however, for his sadism, treating the human body like plasticine and bending and flaying it further than it should ever go. Half the stuff Pinhead does in these films I could not even begin to describe to you if we are trying to stay friendly within guidelines. The lament configuration is a strange lockbox puzzle that when opened will summon the Cenobium to you. Whether or not they take you away to join them on their travels, well, that's not really up to you. That's up to Pinhead and his buddies. Number 1. Man. Number 1 on our list of the scariest monsters in horror movie, it's man. No, just kidding. It'd be funny though, let's do the real one. Number 1. The Thing. The ultimate in alien terror. That's what the poster for John Carpenter's absolutely legendary 1982 cult classic claims, and he was completely right. The Thing is a story about a group of researchers stationed at a complex in Antarctica who find themselves being preyed on by an intergalactic shapeshifter picking them off one by one, arousing suspicion amongst all these tight-knitted researchers. It was the Among Us of its time, if you will. The titular Thing in question is an extremely hostile, squelching, wet, shape-shifting alien from beyond the stars, capable of assimilating everything in its path, taking its form. We have no idea what the Thing itself even truly looks like, or if it could even be said to have a true form, as the film does sort of imply that it's a microbiotic organism. As in the film, a blood sample alone is enough to detect who the Thing is. When heated, the blood thickens and tries to escape away, suggesting that every cell of the Thing is sentient in some way. The Thing can take whatever form it pleases of its victims, replicating them perfectly, down to their memories, their speech, making it impossible to tell who's telling the truth and who's who they say they are. The Thing has no clear goals, serving only to preserve itself, and it will do anything to survive. Whenever it finds itself alone with a suitable target, it extends its vile tentacles, seizing its victim and becoming it. The Thing goes through several forms during the film, and each one of them are absolutely disgusting. Whenever a part of it severs, the Thing earns its number 1 spot on this list for its legendary practical effects from industry titan Stan Winston, whose series of puppets and maquettes gave us one of the most truly disgusting monsters to ever slop its way across the silver screen. The Thing is something like barbecuing and Bob Dylan. At some point you're gonna get a little older and realize your dad was right about some of the things he told you was good. Absolutely go see The Thing after this video if you haven't before. It will not disappoint you.
Number 5 on this list is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If slasher movies are more your style of horror, then this movie should definitely be up your alley. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an upcoming Netflix film directed by David Blue Garcia. It stars Sarah Yarkin, Elsie Fisher, and Mark Burnham. This is going to be the 9th installment of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. However, this movie doesn't act as the 9th in the franchise, as it's supposed to be a direct sequel from the first ever Texas Chainsaw Massacre that was released in 1974. Now, if you've never seen that first movie and you do intend to watch it, then just be aware that the log line for this next upcoming film, there's actually a spoiler in regards to that original movie. I'm going to read that off now. The log line of this movie is Melody, her teenage sister Lila, and their friends Dante and Ruth head to the remote town of Harlow, Texas to start an idealistic new business venture. But their dream soon turns into a waking nightmare when they accidentally disrupt the home of Leatherface, the deranged serial killer whose blood-soaked legacy continues to haunt the area's residents, including Sally Hardesty, the sole survivor of his infamous 1973 massacre, who's hellbent on seeking revenge. So that paints a pretty good picture of what you can expect from this movie. Texas Chainsaw Massacre has been an extremely successful franchise, and that first movie made incredible advances to the slasher genre as a whole. That being said, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise has never been known for their extensive story or plot lines. I obviously have yet to be able to see this movie and don't want to give it an unfair evaluation. However, I would imagine that this movie will be pretty similar to its predecessors in the past. If blood, gore, and brutal death is for you, then you'll probably love it. The film is set to be released on Netflix on February 18th of 2022. Number 4 on this list is Firestarter. Firestarter, according to Google, is an upcoming American science fiction horror film directed by Keith Thomas based on the novel of the same name by Stephen King. It's a reboot of the 1984 film adaptation. Anything that is based on a Stephen King book has my attention, and especially one as cool as Firestarter. The film is directed by Keith Thomas and stars Zac Efron. The initial Firestarter movie that was made in 1984 didn't do as well as the movie makers might have hoped, and I imagine that the makers of this film intend to raise the bar this time around. The premise is as follows. A young man must protect his daughter after she develops pyrokinesis and is hunted by a secret government agency known as the Shop that intends to capture and control her. Now, I've never read Firestarter or seen the initial movie, but the premise sounds incredibly cool to me. Just from reading that, I can see a lot of potential comparisons to the show Stranger Things, which I absolutely loved. I will admit that this movie doesn't sound quite as scary as some of the other ones on this list, but I imagine that it's going to be a pretty good thriller, and if it's done properly, should keep us on the edge of our seats the entire time. The science fiction horror movie has yet to get an official release date, but most people are speculating that it'll be late 2022.
Number 2, The Taking of Deborah Logan. It's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, I'm not gonna lie. This movie is horrifying. If you're down for like old witchy ghost lady vibes on a Friday night, and you like jump scares, we got a winner, folks. A 2014 gem. This American found footage supernatural horror film is a first for the director Adam Robidoux, who co-wrote the screenplay. Set in Virginia, it tells the story of a documentary crew making a film about Alzheimer's patients who uncover something sinister while documenting one woman. The film was released right around Halloween time, and you can still catch this on like every streaming service. A team of students who want to create a documentary about Deborah Logan, an elderly woman who has Alzheimer's, films and records her daily life. Then Deb starts to act a little bizarre. They notice that her actions defy normal explanations and express something a little bit more supernatural. Things escalate after they record an audio of Deborah talking about sacrifices and snakes. Oh yeah, like real witchy old lady vibes, I'm telling you. After some talk about an ancient ritual that makes people immortal, some dark cultist kind of stuff, and voila, Deb goes on a spree and tries to kidnap them all. They find out that she has quite the sinister history and that maybe she's not a really good fit for the star of a documentary, more like the star of an exorcism. Yeah, like that kind of stuff, you know? GoPro, night visions, old lady witchy standing in dark corners, good old fashioned thrillers, you know? Good for the whole family, right before bedtime, in the dark. And the number 1 spot, of course, is The Visit. This movie's kind of like the last movie, with all the witchy vibes, but like way more subtle and way more terrifying. Yeah, I don't like when there's like creepy shit just running around in the background shots, right? Like, that's what scares me the most, the background shots. The Visit is a 2015 American found footage comedy horror film written, produced, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. The film centers around 2 young siblings, teenager Becca and her kid brother Tyler, who live with their mother, who's had a pretty gruesome past herself. After finding their grandchildren online and wanting to meet them, the kids' grandparents invite them to spend a week at their farmhouse. Aw, how nice. Like a little Hansel and Gretel type stuff. Exactly. The film was released by Universal Pictures and it grossed about $100 million worldwide, against only a $5 million production budget, so yeah, this one killed it. Good job, guys. But it got mixed reviews though. I don't really know why. This movie's like really scary and well done. The plot. The kiddies are getting ready for a 5-day overnighter at the grandparents while their mother Loretta goes on a cruise as a much needed break. Loretta reveals that she has not spoken to her parents for like 15 years. The teens plan to record a documentary film about their visit using a camcorder. It's shot kind of GoPro style with some classic camera falls on the floor, what's in the background type fun. I'm not going to spoil anything in this movie, but if you like screaming things, crawling around all in the middle of the night, yeah, then this movie's definitely worth a watch. Check it out.
Number 5, The Annihilation Bear. First up on our list is Annihilation Bear. We love The Annihilation Bear. Annihilation was a 2018 cosmic horror flick, and if it slipped through your watch list, and it probably did because this thing was a box office failure, regrettably, please pause this video, open up a new tab to Amazon Prime, rent it, and then come back to me in 115 minutes, okay? I'll wait. Okay, perfect. Welcome back. Pretty good, eh? Should have seen that one in a theater. And how about that one scene with the bear? Okay, for those of you who didn't watch, Annihilation is about a mysterious alien force called the Shimmer that has been expanding from a meteor crash into a remote area outside an army base. Everything affected by the Shimmer is mutating in bizarre, strangely beautiful fractal ways. biological life merging together in ways it shouldn't, like a giant cosmic gumbo. A biology professor and an army veteran named Lena is sent to investigate after her thought-to-be deceased husband shows up at home mysteriously and starts convulsing violently. She's then joined by a crew of scientists and researchers to explore the shimmer and unearth its mysteries. Now, if you can remember all the way back to that first paragraph about 15 seconds ago, I mentioned a scene with a bear. In a movie with ridiculously star-studded cast and fantastic performances across the board, the movie is utterly stolen by one horrifying, cosmically monstrous mutant bear. There are no small parts, just small mutated bears. Like any good cosmic horror story, as the protagonists venture deeper into the shimmer, they start to turn on each other. And one of the heroines ties the others to the chairs, where they're apprehended and hunted by this thing. A rotten, diseased mess of skin, and who knows how many different beings merged into this poor bear. They surmise that the creatures it's killed before have started to become grafted inside of it. We can see a human skull at the side of its head, and even inside the mouth, we can see another human set of teeth. The way this thing sounds, too, the mix of human screams and bear howls, is the kind of thing I'm still thinking about vividly 4 full years after seeing this. Annihilation Bear was barely even in the movie, and yet it sticks with me like a bad dream. Number 4, the Xenomorph. One of the most iconic horror movie monsters and a mainstay of pop culture iconography. When you think of an alien, if you don't think of a little gray man with big black peepers, it's very likely you think of the Nostromo's 8th passenger. Is it a little obvious of a choice to be on this list? Maybe. But I don't think I could sleep knowing that I didn't have the Xenomorph on the list. It just didn't feel right. Birthed by surrealist Swiss painter and all-around nightmare man, H.R. Giger. By the way, are there any of his paintings behind me right now? Are there any H.R. Giger paintings we can even show on YouTube? Anyway, the Xenomorph is the alien in the movies. Giger wanted an alien that looked vaguely human, but armored and protected from all outside forces. He wanted something with no eyes, so you wouldn't be able to tell if it was looking at you, instead having a human skull with empty sockets. If you want a little peek into Giger's mindset, in case his incredibly disconcerting paintings weren't enough, Giger himself had nothing but love for his baby, saying, "I wanted my alien to be a very beautiful thing. A monster isn't something disgusting. It can have a kind of beauty." And I guess he's right. You know, to each their own. There's definitely a real beauty in a constantly salivating, seemingly invincible, completely stone-cold killing machine with acidic blood, 2 sets of jaws, no drive beyond self-preservation, hunger, and procreation, and a penchant for stalking its prey remorselessly. I mean, that's exactly what it says I'm looking for in my Tinder bio. Number 5, you're next. Hey, family dinners are always a bit awkward, aren't they? You know, trying to get the gravy passed to you, trying to avoid an argument with your uncle about your career, and trying to elude the vicious sickos that are hunting you and your family for sport. You're Next is a 2011 slasher directed by Adam Wingard, who also blessed us with Godzilla vs. Kong, one of the finest films ever made. Made on a humble $1 million budget, You're Next is a horror movie that brings it to the absolute basics. One house, one troubled family, and 3 very dangerous psychopaths. An estranged family is meeting for a reunion at their summer home in the rural Deep South, and newcomer to the family, Erin, is nervous to be introduced officially as her boyfriend's long-term partner. Now, tensions are high enough with the usual family drama before the first crossbow bolt pierces the window, as the family is being hunted by a relentless pack of bloodthirsty animal mask-wearing lunatics who seem to be doing this whole thing just for kicks. Watch the family fall apart under pressure, metaphorically and uncomfortably literally, as they're picked off one by their sick predators, until one of them starts to rise up unexpectedly against their tormentors. Now, if you were a fan of the Hotline Miami games, this is probably as close as you're ever going to get to a movie for that 80s splatter feel and all the animal mask wearing lunatics. You're Next feels like a movie that got time traveled from 1984 in the best way. It's a throwback to the golden age of B-horror movies, wet, gross, stupid, and in the darkest ways, really funny. This movie's almost a dysfunctional family comedy, if you can call it that. It's sinister, sick, gruesome, and hilarious, has an absolutely great sense of style, really cool soundtrack, and I guarantee you the main song from the movie is gonna get stuck in your head for weeks afterwards. Definitely check You're Next out if you're looking for some fluffy horror fun. I've got a DVD at home if you want to borrow it. Now, hey ghouls and goblins, you already know that the best place for the scary video. Hey ghouls and goblins, you already know the best place for scary videos on the web is right here, but if somehow you didn't know that, always a good time to learn, so why don't you subscribe so you never miss a scare. Number 4, The Color Out of Space. When we think H.P. Lovecraft, we tend to think of giant squid monsters and incomprehensible madness. Well, this movie's got one of those unfolds, and it's not the squid monster. The Color Out of Space is a 2019 horror movie directed by Richard Stanley, adapting the H.P. Lovecraft story of the exact same name, but modernizing it slightly, bringing it up to the 21st century. The story details a father moving his family to his late father's farm, escaping the bright lights and humdrum of city life, moving to his hometown of Arkham, the exceedingly cursed city from Lovecraft's writings. What should be a breath of fresh air and lovely times in the cottage turns to a nightmare when an asteroid falls to the farm, releasing with it a mysterious color that seeps into the farmland. A color out of space, if you will. It affects the minds of everyone around the farm, all the animals, and begins to seep into the water and drive everyone to incomprehensible madness. Nick Cage plays the patriarch of the Gardner family, and let me tell you, there could not possibly have been a better actor for the lead in a movie about slowly going mad. I mean, Nick Cage on his absolute best day already seems like he's about 2 screws short of absolute madness, so watching him in this is a treat. You spend the entire time wondering if the insanity is taking him over and consuming his brain, or if that's just how Nicolas Cage talks and he thinks he's doing a New England accent right now. Color Out of Space builds really slowly, leaving you on edge the entire time, and when the madness sets in, it sets in hard as you painfully watch the farmstead fall, desperate that maybe, just maybe, someone will pull through against the immeasurable horror of some entity beyond the cosmos. It captures Lovecraft's writing effortlessly and brings it to the modern age flawlessly, with all the blood and insanity you could hope for. Number 3. The Void. Our next entry on this list is The Void, a 2016 horror flick by Steven Kostanski, another Lovecraft horror movie. Your host has a little bit of a bias, and this one's Canadian made, so I have to include it based on that alone. It also totally rocks, so there is that. The Void is another flick that feels like it time traveled through the mid-80s, and maybe it's just my personal tastes, but that is very much a good thing. The Void seems like the kind of thing John Carpenter would have slapped his name on. A small-town deputy has his night wildly disturbed when he finds someone suffering from violent injuries, and after taking him to the local hospital, finds himself trapped in the hospital with his ex-wife, a nurse, who's dealing with a crisis of her own as the hospital is being overrun by an onslaught of mysterious injuries and madness. The two estranged lovers find themselves caught in a blood-soaked conflict between a sinister cult and some entity that appears able to revive the dead, albeit a bit twisted into horrifying monstrosities of flesh and bone. Now, if you're like me and you think The Thing is the greatest horror movie ever made, The Void feels like it could be its unofficial sequel. It's better than the actual sequel prequel to The Thing that they made. The special effects on the monsters are fantastic. If you're the kind of ghoul who loves puppets, prosthetics, and gallons worth of corn syrup blood, The Void has everything you are looking for in those 3 spades. And the plot is fun, and it has some good twists and turns, but let's be honest here. You're watching this one because it's got very gross monsters and really cool Lovecraft-inspired mythos of cults and a great god beyond the stars. You want my advice? Grab a friend or two, order the largest, greasiest pizza your local favorite spot has, grab a 2-liter of something carbonated, and have a great Friday night with this one. The Void to me is what a good horror movie should be. Gross, scary, a little stupid, and a ton of fun.
Number 2 on this list is Nope. Nope is an upcoming film from horror legend Jordan Peele. Peele is said to have written, directed, and produced the movie under his Monkey Paw Productions company. The film is said to star Daniel Kaluuya, Ethan Kutkoski, and Steven Yeun. Now, in all honesty, not much is known about this movie in regards to the plot. The only thing that we've really seen about this movie is the poster of it. The poster features what looks to be a small town or potentially a circus at the foot of some mountains with some extremely menacing clouds overhead. This is basically all we've gotten from Peele about this project so far, but it hasn't stopped fans from trying to speculate. Now, some people are guessing that the title Nope gives a lot away about the style of this horror movie. People on the internet use the word nope to describe movies or scenes from movies. For instance, a nope scene might be one where something super cringy or awkward is happening that makes the audience want to turn away or effectively say nope to the scene. Some people are speculating that the entire Peele movie will have scenes like this and attack the audience with jarring stuff that makes the viewer uneasy. Others are thinking that the movie could be about a cloud, considering the clouds in the poster are certainly pretty frightening and really foreboding. Some other people are even guessing that the movie could be a sequel to Peele's most famous horror project, Get Out. The reason that they say this is because this is the first reunion Daniel Kaluuya and Jordan Peele have had since that movie. Jordan Peele's horror career has been one of great success so far, and if Nope is anything like the other works he's written and directed, then this could very easily turn into be one of the scariest and best horror movies of 2022. As of right now, the film is set to release in July, so definitely keep it on your radar. Number 1 on this list is The Black Phone. The Black Phone sounds utterly terrifying if you ask me. The movie is a supernatural horror film that's directed by Scott Derrickson, who is also the director of The Exorcism of Emily Rose. It stars Ethan Hawke, who I absolutely love as an actor, and is based off of the 2004 short story of the same name written by Joe Hill. And in case you weren't familiar, Joe Hill is the son of famous horror author Stephen King, and he really channeled his father's energy with his short story of The Black Phone. The plotline of this movie on Rotten Tomatoes is as follows. Finney Shaw, a shy but clever 13-year-old boy, is abducted by a sadistic killer and trapped in a soundproof basement where screaming is of little use. When a disconnected phone on the wall begins to ring, Finney discovers he can hear the voices of the killer's previous victims, and they are dead set on making sure that what happened to them doesn't happen to Finney.